There's a huge, dangerous illusion spreading through the WNBA Players Association right now, and it's blinding them completely. They walked out of the latest collective bargaining negotiations celebrating like they had just changed the game forever. Champagne popping, cameras flashing, bold statements being thrown around about a historic win. To them, this was a moment of power. They believed they had forced billionaire owners into handing over massive guaranteed salaries. They thought they had secured life-changing money without giving up control. But the truth? They miscalculated badly on every level that actually matters. They didn't win this battle. Welcome back to WNBA Pro, where we don't repeat feel-good headlines or polished PR talking points. We break down what's really happening behind the scenes, where leverage, money, and power actually decide outcomes. So lock in for a second, no distractions, no noise, because what just happened isn't just a negotiation, it's one of the smartest corporate plays we've seen in modern sports. WNBA ownership didn't simply outmaneuver the players at the table, they reshaped the entire system in one precise move. Right now, the media is fixated on the headline numbers, the new multi-million-dollar salary caps, the jump to around $7 million per team, and on the surface, it looks like a massive win. But that's surface-level thinking, because money at this level is never given, it's exchanged. Billionaires don't cut into profits out of generosity. Investors don't hand over millions without securing something in return. If salaries suddenly multiply, it means something even more valuable was taken off the table, and that's exactly what happened here. While players were focused on bigger paychecks, ownership quietly adjusted something far more important: the structure of the entire basketball calendar. For years, WNBA players depended on a second income stream to make real money. Their league salaries weren't enough, so they played overseas during the offseason, in Europe or in emerging leagues backed by serious funding. That global system wasn't optional, it was survival, and over time, it became leverage. Players believed they could now have both: higher WNBA salaries and continued access to those outside opportunities. A perfect setup where they could maximize earnings from multiple leagues. But ownership saw that coming, and they shut it down completely. By restructuring the timeline and demands of the WNBA season, they've made it nearly impossible for players to maintain those outside commitments. What looked like a financial breakthrough quietly came with a restriction, and now the very system that once gave players flexibility and leverage is being erased in real time. This wasn't just a deal, it was a trade-off, and the price is only now becoming clear.
Signed for Project B. Okay, so I'm interested to see how that's going to affect them. Is Project B going to be cool with some players potentially coming over late? I don't know, man. Project B's paying a baggy bag too. They're paying a lot of money, so they might not be okay with certain players.
Now really think about what's hidden inside that schedule shift, because this is where things get ruthless. This isn't just a minor tweak. This is calculated, precise, and honestly a little brutal when you break it down. The WNBA has officially pushed its season all the way into late November, and during Olympic years, it stretches right up to November 30th. That's not Sluchiny timing. That's intentional, because this move directly collides with the rise of outside leagues, especially Project B and similar ventures trying to compete for top talent. Project B, for example, is a well-funded international league scheduled to run from late November through April. They came in aggressive, offering huge guaranteed contracts to attract elite WNBA players. And it worked. Top-tier names like Kelsey Mitchell committed early, locking in those deals months ahead of time. The assumption the WNBA would stick to its usual schedule, leaving enough room to do both. But ownership saw that strategy developing and stepped in. By extending the WNBA Finals to November 30th, they didn't just adjust the calendar, they created a direct conflict that can't be avoided. There's no overlap solution here. You can't be in the WNBA playoffs and also show up for the opening stretch of Project B. It's physically and contractually impossible. So now players are stuck facing a harsh reality: honor those overseas or alternative league contracts, or stay committed to the WNBA. There's no middle ground anymore, and that's the real play. This isn't about scheduling, it's about control. Ownership has effectively forced a long-term decision on every elite player in the league. One path or the other. That's leverage at its highest level. But here's the part most people still aren't seeing. They didn't just apply pressure at the end of the season. They went after the beginning of the calendar with that same level of precision.
I'm just being honest with you, man. Satu can play about everything. They were mad about 44 games. They were complaining about playing back-to-backs. Absolutely ridiculous. Y'all want more money but don't want to play back-to-backs. The WNBA said, damn all.
Now focus on how precise this next move really is, because it's not getting enough attention. Under the previous CBA, things were flexible, almost too flexible. Players could finish their overseas seasons and casually join their WNBA teams in late May without much consequence. There was room to move, room to balance both worlds, but that version of the system is gone, because now the financial stakes are completely different. With Supermax salaries climbing to around $1.4 million, ownership isn't treating players like part-time contributors anymore. At that level of investment, they expect full control over their asset, and the new rules reflect that shift perfectly. Every player is now required to report to their team by April 15th. No delays, no exceptions. That single date changes everything. It cuts straight through the overseas pipeline and makes the old model almost impossible to maintain. The days of finishing a European season and sliding into the WNBA right after, that's over completely. What ownership is making clear, without even needing to say it directly, is this: if you want access to these higher salaries, then the WNBA comes first. No split focus. No divided commitments. It's all in or nothing. And that brings us to another layer of this situation that's starting to raise serious questions. The expanded regular season. For years, players have been vocal about how demanding the schedule already was. The physical toll, the constant travel, the lack of recovery time. That was under the old structure. Now, with more games and tighter expectations, that pressure isn't going away. If anything, it's only increasing.
November 21st, which is nearly a month later than the previous deal, according to a document produced by the union and acquired by ESPN. Okay, in 2028, the season could stretch to November 30th because of the Olympic schedule, the document said.
Now take a step back and really look at the contradiction here, because it's hard to ignore. On one hand, players pushed hard for bigger money, not just small increases, but major jumps. Charter flights, million-dollar salaries, long-term financial security. They wanted to be paid like top-tier professionals, but at the same time, there were constant complaints about the workload, 44 games, tight scheduling, back-to-backs. That's where the disconnect shows up, because what was being asked for was premium level pay tied to a relatively short, compressed season. Ownership didn't miss that. In fact, they leaned into it. They agreed to raise the salary cap in a big way, but that agreement came with a condition, one that wasn't negotiable. The season got longer, not just slightly, significantly, up to 52 games. So now, those higher salaries come with a clear expectation. You're going to earn every dollar of it on the court. The money is there, but so is the workload, and that shift is creating real pressure, especially for players heading into major contract decisions. One name that stands right in the middle of this situation is Kelsey Mitchell. The Indiana Fever are watching all of this very closely. Mitchell is reportedly seeking a Supermax deal in the range of $1.4 million. At the same time, she's already committed to playing in Project B, an alternative league with its own schedule. And here's where things get complicated. Those commitments don't align anymore. With the new April 15th reporting requirement, any overlap puts her in a difficult position. If she honors that outside contract, she risks missing mandatory team obligations, and that directly affects how a franchise evaluates her value. From Indiana's perspective, this becomes a business decision. If a player isn't fully available, especially under the new rules, can you justify offering the maximum contract, or do you adjust that number based on risk? That's the leverage teams now have, and it doesn't stop at contracts, it extends to durability. Because this new schedule isn't easy, a 52-game season, starting earlier and stretching deep into the year, is a serious physical test. For a guard who relies heavily on scoring and isolation play, the wear and tear becomes a real concern. So now the front office has to think long term. If you commit a large portion of your salary cap, close to 20%, to one player, and that player struggles to stay healthy under this new structure, the consequences are big, especially when you're trying to maximize the early team-friendly years of a franchise cornerstone like Caitlin Clark. That's the bigger picture. This isn't just about one contract, it's about timing, risk, and how every decision impacts the future of the entire roster.
It's strategic by the league And they're not gonna be, we're paying extra money. We're not gonna be waiting around on nobody. Okay, we're not waiting around on Project B. We're not waiting around on Unrivaled. We're not waiting around on Euro Cup. We come second to none. We come second to none.
Let that reality sink in, because it changes everything. This is the moment the WNBA made it clear. It's no longer competing for attention. It's taking control. Ownership has drawn a hard line. No gray area, no flexibility. If players want to be part of what's becoming the fastest growing financial wave in women's sports, driven in large part by the massive impact of Caitlin Clark, then there's a price. Full commitment. That means aligning with the league's schedule, its demands, and its structure. No side paths, no parallel opportunities. And while that line is being drawn, the ripple effect is hitting every alternative league. Project B, Unrivaled, others trying to enter the space. They're now facing a reality they can't ignore, because when access to top-tier talent gets cut off or restricted, the entire business model starts to shake. What once looked like competition now looks unstable. And here's the twist in all of this. What many players believed was a breakthrough moment, a shift in power, is starting to look more like a controlled trade-off. Yes, the money increased, but so did the conditions. What they gained financially may have quietly limited their freedom in ways that are only now becoming visible. It's not a collapse, it's a recalibration. And right now, ownership holds the advantage. Welcome to the new era of the WNBA, where the business side is just as intense as what happens on the court. This is WNBA Pro. We don't follow headlines, we break them down. No spin, no PR filters. Just a clear look at how decisions are actually made and who really benefits. If you want real insight into how the league is evolving behind the scenes, make sure you're locked in. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and let me know your take. How does this play out for players like Kelsey Mitchell, now caught between two systems that no longer fit together? Does Indiana double down or start looking in a different direction to survive this longer, tougher season? Drop your thoughts below, because this shift, it's just the beginning.